this fine day after Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a fine Thanksgiving. I didn't really do much myself. Went out to my brother's, took it easy. No drinking, just a little food. Came home, went to bed, so nothing eventful. No, I don't go shopping on Black Friday, so I got up and I've just gone about my morning like any other day. During this morning, I've had a lot of various interactions with people at home, through my phone, text messaging, calls, whatever, on YouTube, on the internet. And I'm grateful for all the interactions that I have with people in life. And I consider myself a people person, but not really the kind of person who, I guess, here's where I'm getting at. I'm a people person. I like meeting people, getting to know people, but I have a very short level of tolerance for nonsense, or lies or BS, which a lot of people have a low tolerance for those kind of things. They're kind of the values that our society deems to be important, to have honesty, integrity, to be straightforward and fair, all these basic things. We take it for granted. It's kind of the blueprint of our society. I'd say it's partially imprinted, but it's imprinted by force, because without it, we just fall apart. But I go among all these searches for reality in my life and searches for understanding. It's not that I go on a particular journey. It's a very mental thing that people go through where you discover a new avenue of thought. And then you live your normal life, but that thought's in the back of your mind, and it's kind of like trying on new clothes, okay? And you try something out new and see how does it work in life. Perhaps you read a book and gain some esoteric wisdom about, some ancient occult teachings or something. And it seems like such interesting stuff. And I've learned plenty of that in the past. And I go out and try to apply it to the real world and see it really doesn't hold any use for me in my life. But only through further growth did I realize that there are some people that it really benefits, that can really gain from these teachings. For example, people who have the time and dedication to sit down and practice magic, practice occult, wisdom, or if that's their drive, then maybe they gain from it. So what I've learned is to just because I find no information or no use in it, rather, doesn't mean that I should tell others, hey, you shouldn't find use in this, or oh, you won't, that's useless knowledge. Because there's no such thing as useless knowledge. Even the most useless thing on the outside may be something very revealing to you, especially if it helps you not fall into believing something later that maybe, might be kind of a gateway to understanding something else. But I wanted to talk, I guess, kind of about altered states, because that's where I was going with this. That we seek altered states to understand ourselves. And not everyone does, and not everyone understands this. But churches have done it through prayer, and prayer wouldn't be considered an altered state to a lot of people, but it is, in my eyes. This is just my opinion and through my definitions. An altered state can be done when people are speaking in tongue, or they're having particular religious experiences, or they're in a very transcendental meditative state, which has been proven to actually affect the same part of the brain as prayer. Intense prayer, meditation, and a psychedelic experience all trigger the same part, what they call the God center of the brain in layman terms. Now, each one of us can only learn so much about specific things, so I'm not sitting here saying I'm a scientist and I understand how the brain works. I just, learn the bits and pieces that help me in my life. And that's what's helped me understand that each person out there that I meet, if I want to consider them, asleep, or one of the people, a person who seems ignorant to me, but on the inside I know that they have knowledge that I don't, and that they are a piece to my puzzle, because we are all, in this together. It's always been the issue, if 99% of the people believe something and 1% doesn't, the 1% often can become so pious and believing, kind of like the flat earthers, like I was discussing with some of those guys earlier. They're so wrapped up in what they believe, they don't realize that they're believing what they've been taught and told too. It's just that we're believing what's been confirmed by our peers and friends around the world, and they're believing what their other friends have told them on the internet. and it becomes an issue of distrust, and people don't know what to believe. So we want to seek understanding. So our conscious mind can only absorb so much at a time. We know this. We can only process so much with the conscious mind because there's always those things going on in the background. There's always something to distract us. And that's why we go into these meditative states. But what about artificially induced, and what is artificially induced in that question? Mental states. For example, particular breathing and exercises can bring on a meditative state, but taking a hit of DMT can put you into a completely other world that might change your life drastically. For the better, for the worse. I've never met anyone who smoked DMT, for example, that said that they may have had a very intense experience, but every person says it profoundly changes their life, or it doesn't do much. Very few people say that they've been in fear since then or whatnot. And I believe that's because it's gaining a wisdom. And it's almost the same as with psychedelics. You hear a few bad trips and bad stories, but in general, most people have a great time and bring something back from it that they can gain from, some sort of a wisdom. Maybe they don't have a great time, but they learn a truth. And this is where I'm going with this. I've asked myself, can you have a religious or spiritual or intense esoteric experience under any substance? And it's a big question, but I actually had found out that when I do hit a nitrous oxide, and this is a funny one because a lot of people might think this is silly, and I've been wanting to mention this in a video for a long time. A lot of people will do nitrous oxide at a party or something just to get high, do a balloon, take some whippets, whipped cream canisters. We'll get a box once in a while, and I'll actually take some and lay back and take a couple puffs and try to gain a spiritual understanding from it. One time I had such an amazing revelation. It was almost like it was like a Satori-like experience, like an awakening of the moment. And since then I've tried to, I'll take 2 whippets and take it in a few hits, and then I'll sit there and I'll wait to see what the world wants to teach me, if anything. Or maybe it's just my mind teaching me, whatever. The point is that I've learned that there are certain things that you cannot, of course, voice. A lot of things we can't bring back from a psychedelic experience and explain it to people. But with this, it's more of an understanding that everything comes with a balance. With the reason why we're seeking an altered state is to understand who we are, or rather the byproduct of being really, really, really high into a state where you're either disassociated or reassociated. And I call psychedelics now reassociates instead of disassociates, since disassociates like ketamine take you kind of out of your, reality. I feel like psychedelics bring you too close into your own reality and you can see yourself too clearly. That's a reassociate, is the name I gave for it. So get to know yourself is my little slogan for that. But I was going to make a video about that too. So anyway, we have these drugs that get us into these states of mind, and we ask, why do we do it? And some people do it just to get high or to escape. But is it really to escape? Because I don't get high to escape. I get high because it puts me into a particular state of mind. And I always try to gain something from it, no matter what I'm doing. Now, alcohol, I don't really gain any experience from alcohol. That's why I don't drink. I don't gain any insight from it or understanding. It just makes me feel crappy. But on the other hand, it does have a positive side to it. It's a mild social lubricant. Alcohol to me is similar to the way some people view MDMA as being like a bonding kind of thing, because I use it medicinally when I need it and when I feel it might benefit, but not very often. And it's not like I do nitrous all the time either, but that's such an amazing experience when you're using it as a tool, laying back by yourself, closing your eyes. And the revelation I had and what inspired me to make this video is when I did one earlier, and I was sitting here realizing why I want to get into that state of mind is because it leaves this small amount of self behind. This is the self that isn't the self. This is the subconscious part of the mind that does breathing, that keeps you from suffocating, that kind of thing. When I've smoked DMT in the past, I've had experiences where I wondered, how can I remember to breathe? But you just do. And I've been so high on nitrous, you remember to breathe too. It's just something you do. You don't forget to breathe. But you can hold your breath and be so utterly amazed that you don't breathe for quite a while. But as I was having, under that nitrous spell, if you will, just on that verge, I was like, wow, the realization is that here's me, and I can see myself within this reality. All the rest of my external world is, there's synesthesia to an extent. It's mixed senses and sounds and auditory and visual hallucinations, but if you close your eyes and put a blanket over your head, all of it is within your own head. And this is why people take LSD or mushrooms in a dark room for hours on end and just sit there and think about themselves. That's not for me. That's too intense. But so I guess to sum this up, the point of this video is that altered states are not something we should frown upon because society chooses to get high. It's something that we should embrace and say that we should revere and respect humans enough to make decisions as to how to handle themselves in the world. And, I guess it's strange to me, because people smoking pot in a room is often scoffed at still, or smoking pot in general, but everywhere I go, people are just getting drunk. And parties, there's just alcohol, booze all over the counters. It's just normal because we've made it normal. But every other drug is considered harmful. So here's the one normal drug that I've gained no spiritual insight from. And all the other ones, it seems like I've gained something from, and they're all illegal. It just amazes me to no end. So that's why I support full legalization of all drugs, because the market will always regulate itself. It removes the underground and corruption from the equation as far as, by allowing people to make their own decisions and consume their own substances. Because it's easy, the reason I mention nitrous is because people are going to point the finger at somebody who say, oh my God, you're killing your brain cells. You took a nitrous hit, you're killing your brain cells. That's not true. The point is that, you might kill a few brain cells anytime you get high. But if the payoff is that you're gaining some sort of an insight or understanding, is it worth it? And that's why humans get high. They know they're hurting their bodies when they get really, really high sometimes on alcohol, but they gain nothing from it except puking all over. But we still do it. And psychedelics are frowned upon as these horrible things. And disassociates, which are like ketamine, and I guess nitrous would be a disassociate as well, they're kind of frowned upon by a lot of psychedelic users because they're too intense and they separate yourself. But they do have a place, and that's what I'm getting there. I've never been in the K-hole, as they call it, which is ketamine. I've been very scared to try it just because I don't think it's for me, but maybe one day I will, just to say, this is a different reality. And taking all these realities and saying, what is the consensus feeling that I have in all these altered states? What is the self that remains in all of this? And so by doing substances, we're helping to define what is the true self, not within the serotoninogenic normal reality that we inhabit. So hope that makes some sort of sense to some people. If not, well, you're not alone. It hardly makes sense to me. But that's why I seek altered states. It's worth it to me because I feel like I gain things from it. It's just part of life. Anyway.